Welcome to the Revenue Room podcast, where we explore strategies and insights from CEOs and revenue critical C-suite executives who are leading businesses in the information and data economy. Today, I'm joined by Michael Barnett, founder and CEO of InGo. Michael is a three-time entrepreneur who has dedicated his career to unlocking the power of events. Through InGo, Michael has helped grow some of the world's most influential events, from TED to Money 2020 to Atlassian Teams to Workday, by harnessing the untapped potential of attendee advocacy. With the mission to deliver 10x more referrals and to turn participants into passionate promoters, InGo has become LinkedIn's premier event partner and a trusted growth engine for tens of thousands of events each year. Michael's journey from grassroots community building to leading a global event tech company offers powerful lessons on growth, leadership, and the future of human connection at scale. Michael, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so delighted to have you here. And as you know, I am a huge advocate of attendee advocacy. It's the fastest, most efficient, best way to get the most highly qualified, engaged attendees at your event. So I'm really excited for our conversation.
Well, what a pleasure and honor get to be here, Heather. Thank you so much for having me, and love your program. It's amazing. I'm in elevated territory with some of the other guests you've had on here as well. So I'm excited to get to have this conversation.
Well, it's actually quite interesting. Your network, you probably have one of the largest networks among event leadership that I know. So while you're in great territory, I think you have a seat at the table just with them. So I think we're so excited to have you, and not just here as a guest on the Revenue Room, but also as a strategic partner and sponsor of Revved Up 2026, which we'll talk about later. You've built your career around the belief that events are not just gatherings. They can change industries and even improve the world. And I actually 100% agree with you. And in fact, especially in today's world of AI, I think not only are events going to have a more prominent place because of trust and connection, the need for connection, but all of these new businesses that are being launched have to have a platform in which to accelerate that. But tell me how when did you start getting into events? When did you find that passion for the event industry?
You said two things really. Well, I'll answer the question, but I want to come back to the point you made about how important events are to even young companies and their go-to-market engines. I'd love to pull on that thread. But started getting into events. Funny, my father, my stepdad, was running hotels and then got the opportunity to run part of Madison Square Garden. And so all of a sudden, wow, not only the concerts, but also there's a good number of B2B events and B2C events that happen there. And so that was my first taste into events, was going behind the scenes with him. And he would talk me through all the different load in and like the challenges and the union labor that went into it. And then just seeing the event come together. It's incredible what events do in terms of building a small city and bringing together a small city. And they do it all in 6 days. I don't think people see the finished product, but it's sort of like watching a figure skater, but then never actually trying to figure skate. You don't realize how extraordinary what's happening is.
You absolutely are correct. It is one. I love the fact that it's like building a small city and the things that have to go on behind the scenes. Like even, I was reading something the other day about the risk mitigation and security planning for these events. Like you have to really literally anticipate anything and everything that could go wrong and have a plan A, B, and C for it so that your attendees are safe, your sponsors are safe, like the environment is safe. Just that alone, that's like a whole thing that people don't realize. So that's great. That's really cool about Madison Square Garden.
We support some events where they have tens of millions of dollars in jewelry at them. And there are organized gangs that go in and will distract security, will distract the booth, will swipe significant value in jewelry. And so you have to have, like, to your point, very complex and robust security plans, facial recognition, and teams that really think about this. We some of our colleagues have hired like former heads of DOJ, FBI to help them really lock down their security procedures, because to your point, I think there's going to be a lot more attention paid to B2B events going forward as well. We're getting higher quality celebrities, higher quality attendees. As all of that happens, you really want to make sure that it's a secure environment. for everybody to enjoy and really have a good time.
I didn't even think about that with the jewelry shows. That's incredible. But let's go back to the 2 points, that I mentioned before.
Oh, yeah.
About one is
I think
events as a platform for young companies.
Yeah, I think that point, right? Like somebody made a really good point the other day, which is that the best companies don't go see a market that exists and win that market. They go see a market that will exist and they win that market before it even exists. And to that point, I think that events are this incredible opportunity for that. We've seen this with Money 2020. We've seen it with health. We've seen it with other shop talk and grocery shop, where these events are actually big parts of the incubation of the future companies. So you get Stripe, you get Square, you get these companies that where they grew and where they met a lot of their critical partners and critical relationships and customers were at events. Because if you're a young company, how do you develop trust? How do you develop trust when everybody else can go use AI to create a video and create endless marketing and inundate your prospects? The best way to get that trust is going to be an event.
100%. And it's funny what well, a couple of things. One is you have events that could do a couple of things for the young companies. One, you have like the venture scaling events where they go and they're getting the venture funding. I mean, back in the old days, I don't know if you remember this event, but it was called Demo, and there was another one called Agenda. And in their funding, startups would literally, like the VCs were like, do you have $25,000 in that your budget for that event and this event? Because you have to have that to be there. It was like part of, that's how important it was to be at those events. And this was in the tech environment. But the other part is for young companies, it's the trust, it's the product insights and customer engagement that gives feedback that they're getting from these events to help them continue on a successful product development journey that you could never get from what I would say a digital only marketplace, a market GTM play. So I think events really are going to have a much, much bigger place on the startup journey. And in fact, one of the speakers we're bringing to Revved Up, Diana Florescu, has a venture capital fund for media that essentially event organizers and media companies will invest inventory into the fund. And then these startup companies, and right now it seems to be very much on the B2C side, apply to get like $1 million worth of marketing spend across these media organizations to launch their like first go-to-market campaign. And that investment turns out it results in equity for the media companies. It brings the media and event orgs, actually a new channel for new customers, because of course, if they do well, they're going to buy more. And they actually can recognize it as revenue. So it's a really new, interesting angle, and it's one of the topics we're going to bring to light at the event. So, what was the other point I brought up that you wanted to address?
Oh, I love your point about Revved Up and customer feedback. I think that people talk about product market fit all the time, and it's been a very hot topic, especially with AI. Of what does it really mean to achieve product market fit when everybody's experimenting, trying new solutions, spending money on it all. And to me, at an event, it's one of these places where you get feedback that you would never get otherwise. Right? Because like if I call you and we do a one-on-one conversation, it's very different than just having time at an event, having a drink and saying, what did you think about this product, that product? It was events like Revved Up and CISO, in fairness, and others that really helped us understand what the value InGo could bring to the industry by talking to some of the leaders, by talking to people that really care and are also very passionate about the industry and want to see it move forward, want to see it drive human flourishing, want to see it help industries and companies and causes move forward.
No, absolutely. And there's a new component of the program, by the way, which I'll share later, called Innovation Lab, which for younger, what called tech adjacent startups to participate, but in a kind of a different way where they get customer feedback. But let's get to InGo, because I really I find that if you can get your attendees to advocate for your event, that like they are not only sharing that they're going, but they're advocating for other people. It's like, it's the best form of, it's not even flattery. It's like your best form of marketing. And so many event organizers that I talk to don't do this yet. So
It's pretty amazing.
tell me, is it amazing? So,
no, I think it's your point. It's amazing how many events don't tap into this opportunity, right? Like if you think about an event of 5,000 people, 1,000 people, how many connections do those people have that the event organizer would love to have at their event, right? An event of 1,000 people, just to keep the math easy, those people probably all know 100, 200 people in the industry that aren't attending. That's 100 to 200,000 connections that should be attending the event but aren't. And just it's massive untapped resource for all of these companies. And I think that the reason that events don't leverage that as much as they should is that a lot of the marketers were trained and grew up in a world of email and Google ads and pay-per-click, which is very good and it's really wonderful, especially in a universe where you're just trying to spray and pray, you're trying to get everybody, you're trying to reach the whole internet, you're sort of carpet bombing marketing out there. But in the world of events, all of the people you want to acquire are connected to your current participants, your current attendees. That's not true for a lot of businesses, right? If I run a McDonald's or I run a software company or I run any number of companies, the entire universe of people I'm trying to reach is probably not connected to my current customer base, my current user base, my current whatever base. But for events, that's very different. Like if I've got 100 speakers, 100 exhibitors, 800 attendees, those people know enough people to 10x the size of my event. And so I do think it's amazing more organizers don't use referral marketing, especially not to its fullest extent.
Well, it's ironic as well because this, the new buzz, word du jour besides AI is community. And you want community because you not only have to, and I don't like using this word, own the relationship, because you don't own the relationship with anybody. You have a, it's the degrees of separation you have and the affinity, but let's just use the word own for this sake. You want to own the relationship, not just with, for those 3 days, but across the year. You want to provide value. And the community has something called the network effect, which is a very common term in, startup world. But if you can actually, events could activate the network effect, the event becomes more valuable, the more the community is referring and bringing more community members in. So if they're truly talking about community and wanting to drive a community strategy, they really have to have this.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned, I was just on a call yesterday with Naomi Kralin from Storycraft Labs with Experience Profiles. I don't know if you've seen it, but they're a great partner. And they do this where they use psychographic data and demographic data on the attendees to map out different, what they call experience profiles. I'm a creator, I'm a unicorn, I'm an inventor, I'm a visionary. And then people fill out the survey and then they're assigned their experience profile is identified for them. And what's cool about it is, like, we've done it with Workday, we've done it with IMAX, we've done it with a few others. People get incredibly excited. So to your point, I think that events are not just they're not just an event, as we know. They are the heart and soul of a community. And when you help people not just connect to the broad community, but also connect with their tribe within the community, it's very clear this really powerful unlock. And I mention this because I think that where InGo fits very nicely into this is people love sharing. We have events that when they do it really well, we'll get to 30, 40, 50% of people sharing out. And to put that in context, the average event with no referral solution will get 1 to 2% of people referring out to their community. And then even with a more basic solution, you'll get 3, 4, 5% of people sharing out. But with InGo, you're getting 10 times either one of those, which is the thing we've always wanted to do and what we're really proud of. And then what we see, and Experience Profiles is such a nice compliment because they take that even further. We'll get another 10, 20% of people sharing out and an overwhelming portion doing extra work of filling out these surveys because they want to feel that connection. They want to see which of their connections have the same profile as them and which of their connections are a different profile. And then you do fun things on site where you have a sponsored reception for this profile of people because the sponsor's that profile, the visionaries are the people that are going to buy my product, or the safety security people are the people that are going to buy my product, and I want to sponsor that group as well. And so it creates this really great, to your point, what we were talking about is maybe what we should be talking about more is not event tech stack, but actually community tech stack. That events are just the core of that.
No, I love that. I have to get in touch with Storycraft. That sounds so interesting.
They'd be a great partner.
Absolutely. Now, let's just get to the numbers here a little bit, because that's a very exciting conversion rate. When you're talking that if you can get 30 to 40% of your attendees becoming an advocate, right? i.e., and we'll talk about, for the listeners, how InGo works, just so they can envision it. But if you get 30 to 40% of people sharing out, and you actually take of that, let's just use 40%, of the 40% equals X amount of extra reach, right? If I can, of the 40%, X percent will convert into one more attendee. Let's just say just one. And your event, as you said, you use the 1,000, and your ticket fee is, it like just all you have to do is do the math in terms of understanding both the impact on your hitting your attendee targets, both in terms of numbers and quality, as well as revenue impact. Like, do you have any use case that you can share in terms of, that would be great. And then let's just quickly tell the audience how InGo works so they can understand that.
Yeah, I would love to. I think the math and the value part is a really good topic, not just because of InGo, but I think that event marketers don't get enough credit for what they do. It's not an easy job, and it's not always easy. Like sales teams, right? You've worked in sales. I've worked in sales. It's great. You get a number. You either hit it or you don't. You either celebrate or you're not, and it's pretty transparent whether you were successful. I think as an event marketer, one of the hardest things is you're looking at year-over-year numbers, and let's say something crazy happened. There was a bunch of tariffs, or something crazy happened, and there was an outbreak, and all of a sudden the year-over-year numbers are they don't really mean a lot for whether or not you're achieving success. Or on the flip side, what if you're in AI, you've got an AI event and the industry's on a tear and people are spending trillions of dollars? Like, is 2x growth good, or should it be 4x growth? And so we've spent a lot of time thinking about this, of what does it really mean? What does success as an event marketer really mean? And we like to think about it as, well, the first thing for a lot of events to think about is, what's the value of an attendee? So you mentioned one of the really great metrics for it, which is, what do they pay me? But a lot of marketers don't get nearly enough credit for the value of the attendees to the sponsors and the exhibitors, right? If you've got events, if you didn't have any attendees, if you didn't have any buyers in the room, how much money are you going to make from those sponsors and exhibitors? Zero. And the sales team gets all that credit, right? The sales team gets all that credit for all those sponsor exhibitor dollars, when in fact, the marketers should get at least half that credit, because they brought all the attendees in the room. So when we think about this, we like to think that you really should say, all right, we made that, let's use that 1,000-person event, million attendees, or $1 million in sponsor exhibitor revenue across those 1,000 attendees. That means that every attendee is worth $1,000 to the sponsors and the exhibitors. And then on top of that, maybe they paid $1,000. So now it's $2,000 in value that the marketer got for every attendee, right? And so I think that that's one of the things that we think really hard about, is like, how much credit should these marketers be getting in terms of how much value they're driving? And they should probably be paid better for it as well by that token. And then the last part, real quick, is the other part that I think marketers don't get enough credit for is, especially when they use things like InGo, is, let's say we drove 100,000 clicks or 10,000 clicks, and you would have otherwise had to go pay Google or LinkedIn $100,000, $1 million for those clicks. That's one of the other things that you can think about as like an incredible amount of value that's being driven into the organization, is that cost savings by using referral marketing tools. And oh, by the way, the clicks are real humans that are actually connected to Heather, or actually connected to Michael, actually connected to somebody, as opposed to random nameless people off of some pay-per-click campaign. So those are the major.
Okay, so those are huge, and I'm just going to recap them for the audience. So one is, the attendee value is not just the revenue you get in, because you could actually hit your attendee revenue target, but if they don't map to what the sponsors want, it's actually not really valuable revenue, because you're going to have a sponsor fallout, right? So you're going to have a big churn issue. So
Or
So
if you don't have enough attendees, right? If you don't have enough attendees, we've seen this where shows collapse actually for not having enough attendees.
Yep. And I would actually venture to say that the attendee value is more than just that apples to apples, like the sponsor revenue versus the attendee, because especially if you're doing events that have meetings and you have to fill meetings in, like what's the value of each meeting to those sponsors? So it's like, so I hear this a lot with the companies we talk to, they struggle with trying to figure out what is the true value of the attendee, the lifetime value. So one is really getting your math down about what is true attendee value and the marketer getting credit for that. And then the ability to acquire the customer acquisition cost, which is the second point, is that how does referral marketing not only help optimize your customer acquisition cost or reduce it, right? But it also helps you get closer to the right types of clicks you want. So even if I would even venture to say, let's say I got a click from you shared that you were going to an event and I saw that and I clicked over, but you know what? I can't go this year. But you got me interested. Like there is an attribution there that those clicks are worth more than just you would pay, and they're way less expensive. And then the third point is the ability for the marketer. One of the things I always tell my team is that every day you lose in an event marketing is a day you will never get back. And your pacing is so critical. Yeah. So like, it's not like, let me catch up next quarter. The event happens, it's done. So like you actually now have more levers to pull in situations whereby, you know what, we need to look at the data, find out who's advocating the most, see if I can push that lever a little bit more because I've got this problem over here. So it gives you a more risk mitigation in terms of hitting your attendee goals, both in terms of numbers and quality.
Yep. It's a great point. I love it. I think it's such a good point. A lot of people don't. That's the other thing event marketers don't get enough credit for is the deadlines are much more real in event marketing than they are almost anywhere else in the world. It's really profound how hard how like the sleepless nights and everything else to just make sure you hit those numbers and achieve your goals. It's one of the reasons why we love doing what we do is figuring out how we can make event marketers' lives easier.
No, and there's a lot of burnout because of it too. People don't realize how stressful it is the closer you get to the event. And the thing that always used to bother me the most is like, I hope you're all calm and ready for the event. And you'd get that email like 3 days before and I'd be like, no, we're not calm. We're not ready, but we don't have a choice. That is when it starts and you just go with the flow. So quickly tell. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say you asked about how InGo works. I'd actually say that to me the critical thing is how does just referral marketing in general work? Like we spend a lot of time looking at the science of and really breaking down referral marketing into some discrete moments and some concepts. So from our perspective, actually, like the interesting part that I think a lot of people miss, and it took us a while to really get our head around, is that activation is this really critical step where we can have all the there's really three major pieces. There's activation, motivation, and optimization. And we could have the best optimization and motivation in the world, but it's sort of like a tree falling in the forest. If you don't see the motivation and you don't deliver the optimization, then there's no value in it. So, and I know we talked about this before because you've worked with us and others. If you don't make it really easy for the organizer to activate the participants, give them the chance to use the referral tool, then there's not a lot of value there. And we've seen it in lots of events. We'll have a 100,000 person event where only 25,000 of the people had the chance to use InGo, and all of a sudden a quarter of the value is missing. So we've spent a lot of time thinking about how do you make activation as easy as possible, and we'll roll out more functionality around that as well. But it's one of the things I think we're proudest of is that we've got the richest functionality around activation to make sure that the email is personalized to Heather and has Heather's headshot in it when the email arrives so that you feel very comfortable engaging with that email, sharing out your graphic and inviting your network. The second part is then the motivation step. And that's we spent a lot of time there because we thought that the challenge was in this motivation stuff. We weren't motivating people enough to be advocates and share out about events. And so we built a lot there with incentives and leaderboards and personalization and making it one click. it's fascinating that to me that there's still solutions out there that require 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 clicks to finally post out on LinkedIn or X or Facebook or TikTok or Slack. And with InGo, it's just so much easier where we've got these integrations and the partnerships that make that one click and easy. So that's another big motive is people go, oh, I didn't get exhausted before finally I got a chance to invite my network. And then the last part is optimization, because LinkedIn makes changes, X makes changes, Facebook makes changes to where the link where the link should be, and to what the graphic can do, and how the graphic renders. And so what we've seen is that a great post on a network, take LinkedIn for example, will get 10, 15, 20 clicks on average. And so a VIP, that could be 100 of their connections clicking through. And an average attendee, that might be 8. And what we've seen is that a great post can get hundreds of clicks for a VIP, and an okay post will only get 10, 15, 20. And so it's a big delta. And so we spend actually a good amount of time on optimization, making sure the text is the right length, making sure the link is in the right place. And we're going to continue to enhance that. How do we make the graphic how do we make sure that the organizer makes the graphic great? How do we make sure that the link tracking is in there? And then even how do you make discount codes really easy? We found that, ironically, discount coding was really hard on a lot of platforms, but depending on which registration provider you were using. So that's another it's both a motive because people love giving something and getting something, and it's a good optimization step because if you got a discount code, you get a lot more clicks and a lot more acquisitions out of that. Because ultimately, what we really want to see is that let's say you've got 10,000 attendees. We want to see another 1,000, 2,000 come in from referral acquisitions. And so you have to optimize every step in that process to achieve those kinds of outcomes.
Yeah, so I've got some stuff to add to that, just because we just started seeing some InGo traction on our side. But just for the audience, the way that referral marketing works in the world of events is that there are multiple touch points that you want to try to get your registered attendees to share that they are going to this event and why, right? And they can do that at different points in their journey, everything including right upon, as soon as they finish registration, there can be an InGo embed right there where they can just say, boom, I'm going to click and it goes out onto social. You could then follow that on with email embeds. But what you want to make sure you're doing is it's the same thing in terms of trying to convert a deal to opportunity and moving it down. It's 7 to 10 touch points sometimes to get, especially new attendees, to get them to actually say, oh, I do want to share. They have to learn about it. So you can't just put it on the registration page. It's where you're touching the attendee. But the second thing that's really important is, and I see this mistake all the time. Mistake number one is you just put it on the registration and then you just forget about it and think it's going to work. It's magic. The event organizer actually has to do things to incorporate it into the overarching marketing plan. The second mistake I see is that when someone does post, the event organizer doesn't comment on the post to say, I'm so glad you're coming.
Yep, it's a great point.
It's just a simple thing, because the more comments on a post, by the way, the greater the reach will be. So you are going to help amplify your attendees' post within both their network and yours. And then the third one is the incentive. As you said, you could use discount codes, but what do people get? And not just the referrer, but the person who has said, yes, I'm going to join. That's great. I got referred. I'm in the special inner circle. Is what kind of programming and rewards do you have for both the referrer and the referee, so that they are not only seeing benefit, but I always used to say you should have a winner circle at the event where the top referrers and their guests get some sort of special recognition, like a little lounge area, special badging, because you want to create fear of missing out, and you want other people oh, next year I want that. I'm going to refer. You have to expand this concept, right?
Great
because
point.
It is such to.
Sorry,
go ahead.
No, I was going to say some of the best events, what we've seen. I love this point. Sorry, you got me really excited. Some of the best events, what we've seen is they'll do exactly that. And the VIPs, these super influencers at their event, take pictures, share it out, right? They take pictures together. They get really excited. They have really unique and interesting conversations. And to your point, it creates an experience they're not going to get anywhere else. They're not going to get to spend time with some of the other most influential people in the industry anywhere else other than your events. And so you've created this natural viral, and not only viral, but also like lock-in to the event where people go, well, I have to go back next year. I have to share about the event, and I have to get other people to come, because that's how I'm going to get into this VIP inner circle. Love it.
And tribe, listen, it's the one thing that will never change in human behavior is we all want to be part of a tribe. And so when I start seeing my tribe there at an event and I'm not there, it's like, I've never been to IMEX, but they did such a great job this year of everyone. I'm like, I have got to go. And in my entire career of events, I've never been. And I've never really thought I needed to go because I just had a perception about it. But the sharing about IMEX absolutely helped me say, okay, it's on my calendar for next year. And that was absolutely 100% not due to any email marketing I received from them. It was everything I saw online on LinkedIn. So let's talk about event tech. And you mentioned something earlier that maybe we don't call it event tech, we call it community tech. But I think one of the things that many people don't realize who don't do events as their daily, profession is how much technology is involved in hosting an event, especially large scale events. And it's everything, and you have to kind of bucket it out on two sides, or maybe even three. There's the tech on the audience attendee side. There's the tech on the sponsor side, and then there's the tech on the show floor. And actually, I'll throw a fourth bucket in. There could be tech that you're using for content programming and speakers. But in your experience, Michael, on average, how many components of an event tech stack do you see with customers you work with?
Oh, that's a great question. I guess I would think about it, to your point, in terms of persona. And then also before, I'd probably break it into like personas and before and after. So you'd get speakers, sponsors, exhibitors, and then general attendees. And then, because like we see things like session board for speakers, we see things like map your show for sponsors, exhibitors, and then Freeman's got some tech for picking out how you're going to build out your booth, and then. There's so much to it, right? Then you've got the mobile app, you've got the registration platform, you have generally like a CRM and a marketing platform. You'll have InGo for referral marketing. You'll have, it's pretty expansive. I think that when I was talking to an organizer recently who was saying that they were looking at a significant portion of their overall enterprise budget going to technology over the next few years, especially not only with the existing technologies, but with an increasing portion going to AI to enhance and enable their teams, and also to enhance and enable their matchmaking, sponsor exhibitor acquisition, and the like. So there must be at least 30 meaningful pieces of technology that are both at the sort of like not just events like CRMs and email and whatnot, but then also quite a few that are purely event tech.
I would totally think your number is right, because we didn't even mention the whole matchmaking meeting part of this. Yep. Any type of tech that's like before or after. But the thing is, with all of that, and I'll just bring this back to if I had my druthers, I would say I'd be super interested in knowing something about attendees that came in from referrals, right? Because I always love to say fastest, best, most efficient way to get the best attendee who's engaged at your event, right? I'd really love to also take that a few steps further. Like, are these attendees, how engaged are they? Are they the ones who are most predisposed to do meetings? Are they the ones who are going and showing up at booths and doing booth visits, or are they going to content sessions? Like, I really would love to truly understand both the engagement level as well as the satisfaction level, because they are taking advantage of everything. And in order to do something like that, you would literally need to connect with CRM, the CDP, any badge scanners that you have on site, any facial recognition, to like registration data, InGo data, all of that would have to go up into this holistic single source of event truth in order to get those insights. And I don't know if organizers are doing that yet.
It's rare. We're seeing it more. I wouldn't say that we see it often. And I think that the hardest part is it's hard to connect back to a particular goal, you're so busy. I think the way events are run is very episodic. You rarely have enough resource available to make sure that there's somebody really thinking about the executive strategic layer and like looking at the data and the analytics to really drive that forward. I think that's going to be a big opportunity for current event leaders. I think that there's going to need to be more executive space created to drive that strategy forward and think about the data and think about the long-term life cycle. You mentioned something I think very intelligent earlier of what's the lifetime value of the attendee, as opposed, right? I think a lot of people say, well, they were worth $1,000 because that's what they paid me. And then if you're really thoughtful, you'll say, well, they were $2,000 because of what the sponsor of the exhibitor paid me and because of what they paid me. But then I think if you go one level further, you're like, well, but if I'm doing a good job, a great job, I will keep that person for 3, 4, 5 years. So that lifetime value, to your point, is 3, 4, 5 times what the 1 year value of that person. And I think that that's where getting that data and driving that data forward is going to be a really powerful element. I will say that Informa and Reed and others have done some analysis on the data of who's coming from referrals and find that 17% of the time the person has a higher title than the average attendee. So and it makes sense. Like we've had CMOs and CEOs and whatnot post using InGo in a way that they never refer out, they never invite people really otherwise. And you can imagine the people in a C-suite's network, in a VP's network, in a president's network, those people are only going to respond to a referral. They're not going to they're not even likely to be reading their emails, let alone and using ad blockers and other security tools. So a referral is, in a lot of cases, the only way to reach a lot of people. And I think it's only going to become more true as AI takes over. Like events and referrals are probably going to be the only ways to reach a lot of people.
Well, we're going to get to that question in a second, which is going to be my last question before we move into rapid fire. But you brought up a couple of things on lifetime value. So I actually will state that I think that the referral component needs to be part of the calculation of lifetime value. Because if I get a referral from an attendee, they actually brought me revenue. If people don't believe the written word anymore, now I don't know if it's going to go holistically all the way down to that level, but if trust is going to become such an issue as relates to AI, that really changes the entire marketing game for other industries, of course, but for events in particular, and both in a positive and actually a negative way.
I think it's a great point. In fact, Freeman had data on this a year ago or something like that, where they said that events are the number one marketing trust channel. And it makes sense, right? I mean, like an email, a paid ad, a paid placement in Forbes, Wall Street Journal, wherever else, or actually seeing a person in real life at an event where, let's say you and I are both at SEMA or PCMA at Revved Up, even better, and we're talking about some new technologies there pitching us, and we can turn to each other and say, "Oh, have you used that yet? Have you?" Right? Like, Heather, what about great, this new AI startup's at Revved Up. We get to hear their pitch, but then we actually get to discuss it. And I think, to your point, that connectivity, that community really doubles down, really increases the ability to develop trust in those situations.
Right. And I think the negative part that I was referring to, so one, there's huge opportunity for events, but I think the negative part is your marketing mix is going to change dramatically. And I think for referral marketing, you're going to have to rely much more heavily on that. And I would actually, one of my big recommendations when I talk to companies is it takes a couple of event cycles to really understand how to what is your perfect equation for referral marketing? Like, how does it work with your audience? Like, because as you say, if you have a C-suite audience, that's going to be different in terms of how you do it versus if your audience are like a manager, director, VP, or, and also even by industry. So really learning the mechanics. But my last question to you is, and we've touched on this, I think, throughout the entire discussion, is events have a huge opportunity over the next 5 years. And I don't even know if we should be talking about 5 years anymore. Everything changes the last 3 months. So I'll
Yeah.
say, but what keeps you up at night, both from you're nervous about the industry, but also on the flip side, you're excited about it, right? Because it can't all be just rosy, rose-filled glasses. There actually should be some fear here, because entire markets are shifting because of what's happening in terms of technology, data, and AI disruption.
It's a great question, and it's funny. I want to say it's all rosy, but you're right. You can't. There's always two sides of the coin. So I'd say the opportunity side is certainly the trust side, right? There's certainly this. I'm not going to trust a lot of things because AI hallucinates, because anybody can write anything now, and they can do it at light speed because of AI. And then, so I think that the events and trust there's a big opportunity there. I think that the risk part is going forward, how much is AI going to do procurement? How much is AI going to pick products? How much is AI going to say, well, I already did this analysis. I've already picked out, here are the three options for us as a company based on our size of company, the tech stack we already have. I think that when you think about like a human doing, or any one of us doing purchasing decisions, right? There's only so many variables we can really think about and analyze. And AI can sit down and look at 200 variables, 500 variables for the exact right product for you. And so I think that there's some risk of, do I need to go to the event to make a purchasing decision, to even do product discovery in the way I would have in the past? So I think that there's a big part there where you go, what do events look like in the future? I would say that there is another opportunity, especially with festivalization. So as much as I believe this risk factor, I'd say that the opportunity is around festivalization, because I do think that there's probably more human free time coming. There's probably more room for infotainment or festivalization, where you're going because you're going to learn about the cutting edge, which is, by the way, to your point, happening very quickly. But you're also going to share experiences and understand what the cutting edge of the industry in a more communal environment, where all the technical details don't matter as much, because it will just be handled by AI. But what does matter is the human relationship. What does matter is that if we're going to be in the industry together, I really want to know you and trust you, because again, it's eroded by everything online being questionable, and even video, right? Like in a year, it's quite possible that, and even sort of now, it's quite possible that everything I just said was an AI doing it, not actually me. And so the only way you'll really know that you're talking to somebody is at an event, possibly.
So I think you hit on something really profound, actually, in the fear side, and its opportunity as well. Is that, yes, events are going to be crucial and critical in terms of face-to-face, the trust factor, opportunity, the need for tribe, which actually, with the new generation, Gen Z coming in, is becoming way more and more important. But the format of the event, this idea of, I am there for product discovery, or I'm there to go, perhaps that part may have to evolve, because you're right. If all of that's being done now, through AI, or you just don't need an event so much once a year to do that, then what does the event look like, and how does it bring value? So the format, that's a big shift, actually.
I'd say that we are seeing, and Sugo, I was just at their Uncon event, which was really great. I highly recommend it. They were sharing that a lot of their customers are going towards smaller road shows and breaking down into more intimate gatherings. I think it comes back to, if you think about what is the competitive advantage of a big, huge event? It's probably distribution of information, right? It's probably lots of product discovery and distribution of lots of information to lots of people, right? That's probably the competitive advantage of a huge event. Whereas the competitive advantage of a small event is probably relationship building and trust. And so I think, to that point, right, we could see, I think there's probably two paths here. One is festivalization, big events, lots of excitement, but ultimately, I think even those big events will feel increasingly like lots of small events. And then I think we'll see a proliferation of small events at the same time.
Absolutely. All right. Well, with that, I'm just going to ask. I like to always close this out with two sort of fun questions. And my first one, which maybe you don't have time for this right now with three children, but what is your preferred way to unplug?
My wonderful wife, who's a saint, I'm pretty sure, got me an efoil. I used to love wakeboarding and kneeboarding, and an efoil is this thing that's like a board with a mast coming at the bottom, and then an engine at the bottom, a motor at the bottom of the mast, and so you can sort of like cruise around with an electric battery on the Potomac here or on off the coast somewhere, and I love it. It's a really great. It's a little cold right now, but otherwise, it's a really great way to unwind.
I saw people doing that, and we were in St. Martin, and I was like, "That looks so fun," but they all kept falling off. So,
Yeah, I fell a lot the first few times. Yeah.
And what's the book on your nightstand right now? Again, if you have time to read.
Funny, Anne and I love reading out loud to each other. So we've read Lord of the Rings, we've read all of Sherlock Holmes. We are currently reading Mark Twain, Huckleberry Finn right now.
How nice. Well, I love that. You guys are such a cute couple.
Thanks.
Well, listen, Michael, thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to sign up for on revenueroomconnect.com. We'll put the link in the show notes. You can also subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or on YouTube. So you won't miss an episode. And we've been mentioning Revved Up 2026. It is a summit for CEOs and C-suite executives leading media, events, and data information businesses. It takes place March 23 through the 24th at the Vinoy in St. Pete. And this year's theme is redefining growth, data, AI, and the business model shift ahead. Look forward to seeing you next time.
Can't wait to be there.